Hi, this is Derek Rowe. Welcome to this short introduction to the Learn, Teach, Explore holistic communication model. LTE, which is what we call it, Learn, Teach, Explore, stems from two separate realisations I've had over my career. The first is that we can use trigger words to influence our communication, like a single word. If I choose to do and say that word once it's in my head, it can really shape and change my communication, and not just what I say, but how I say it. Voice, body language, etc. It's quite transformational and very easy from a training perspective to tap into. Then the second realisation is all best practice, in other words, suggested by expert work conversations, share the same overall structure and flow, which was quite the shock to me. In fact, I've spent the last 10 years trying to disprove this theory by finding examples in books of step-by-step best practice work conversations that don't have the learn, teach, explore flow. I can't find one, but more of that later. So this is the way I used to be asked to train a subject like active listening. And you usually get a short introductory paragraph or sentence in this case, and followed by some dot points, and we ask people to do those dot points. And to me, the assumption I feel in this style or approach is people don't know how to do it and they need to be shown how to do it. Now, I've never held that view. I believe that it's not a question of skill, it's a question of mindfulness and choice, whether we choose to actively listen or not. So the idea of training people as if they don't know or can't do something is very different than accepting they do know and can do something, but often are choosing not to, mindfully or unmindfully. So as I say, the idea of going, well, okay, if I accept you can do this, but at times you don't, what can I do to trigger the inner effective communicator that I believe you are? And trigger words, and obviously the three trigger words that I'm talking about in the model are learn and teach and explore, and I'll unpack those a bit later, why they are the words. But, you know, it's interesting when you give someone the word help to use in a role play, say if you're running a customer service workshop, rather than show them any of this sort of theory, go, okay, here's a role play, you be a busy, restaurateur or shop owner, and the other person be a customer with a problem. Right, 1, 2, 3, go. Put the word help in your head, by the way. Shop owner, waiter, whomever. And it's interesting how they immediately do this stuff. It's quite transformational to show people this theory after a role play, and I never give people time to prepare. It's like, hey, you're a restaurant owner, you're a customer with a complaint, go. 1, 2, 3, go, put the word help in your head. And they immediately do these things without any preparation at all. And you therefore, in the way you run the workshop, which you get change out of 2 or 3 minutes when you run it this way, you prove to the group they can do it. They've just done it. And then you show them best practice and remind them, well, you just did that. And they're like, yeah, I did. So why aren't you doing that more? And the conversation is about what needs to be discussed. It's very exciting. Anyway, so that's the first realisation. We can use trigger words to influence our communication. Now, in terms of all best practice work conversations sharing the same structure and flow, I'm a communication skills trainer, and I've been running a variety of different subjects involving communication in my training for decades. And what happens is you usually base a workshop on a book written by an expert in that subject, and part of that book will contain a 1, 2 or 3, up to 6 or 7 step process in having a real-time conversation about that subject, which means that every expert is writing books in a silo. The salesperson is writing sales books. The service person is writing service books. The HR person is writing performance appraisal books. The negotiator is writing negotiation books. And so they don't talk to each other necessarily. But as a trainer, I've trained all of those subjects, and I started to see a pattern. I'll quickly just take you through 4 examples. So this is the way we tend to train the conversation for having when someone's upset, for assisting an upset person, and I won't read it through, you can read that for yourself, but it's a very good structure. Sometimes step one is ask the person to vent, share, same difference. Giving feedback, very different subject that comes from a different book written by a different expert. And again, you can see that there's a 4-step process here that's very specific to that subject. Transactional selling, over-the-counter selling, very different subject, different expert, different model. And when you look at them this way, it's hard to actually see the patterns or connections. Development coaching, more complex, a deeper, richer conversation, 7 steps here. Different expert, different book. Now, here's what I noticed as a trainer of all these subjects. They all have the same structure and flow. Exactly the same. I cannot find a suggested by an expert conversation structure that does not follow this 3-phase approach. So yes, each situation is different. Each conversation strategy is different. Therefore, each step reads differently, but underpinning it, hiding in the background, is this structure. Here's another one. See, it's the same. It took a while to see this, but once I did, I couldn't look away. And neither can most of my organisations, my clients, to be honest, because this is, to me, the in for quick, savvy training. Why would you train people in these separate conversations without first training them in the 3 generic phases and then just drop the different conversational strategies in? It is like buying a Barbie or a Ken doll with a single outfit, keeping the doll but buying more outfits. That's literally how this system works. And again and again, as I say, questions and listening are the first section. They usually involve multiple steps. The statement making, where we turn the tables and ask the other person to be the listener and potentially the question asker, is always a single step. And at the end of this conversation structure, there's always this requirement that the person who initiates the conversation via questioning and listening and then makes a suggestion or an explanation in their statement, it then becomes a 2-way partnering exercise where you have 2 people, hierarchy's gone, and they're working through some kind of a problem. It's fascinating how generic and how important this structure is. And the deeper insights have come along since. Like, for example, where do we build empathy and connection with other humans? Is it through questions or statements? Well, it's through questions. If I don't ask you about something, I'm not taking an interest in you. So why would you take an interest in me? There's a really strong psychological reason why we start with questions, which earns us the right to tell something to someone. And then we're the same. We're just 2 people looking at the one problem. Now we've clarified it and let's work it through to some point of resolution. There's a reason why this is a great general structure, no matter what we're talking about. So this is the entire model. Learn, teach, explore. Even the words and the logo suggest exactly what the group needs to take away. And by the way, this is all they need to take away from the 60 to 90-minute initial training session. Learn, teach, explore is the structure, and learn, teach, explore are the trigger words that we need to put into our head to influence our doing and saying. And there are role plays that we build into learn and teach to help people understand just how profoundly easy it is to be very effective as a questioner and a listener, learn, as an explainer or a suggester, teach, and as an explorer and a connector, explore. Put the word learn in your head, and what we see through the activities we run is real connection and curiosity. What happens is, by honouring the word learn, people actually start to really get curious about the other person. They start to ask authentic questions out of interest, not, compliance. The teach is a really interesting word to look at. Some of my clients prefer the word share, REA, realestate.com. Find the word share a little bit better for their structure than in their culture than teach. Either word seems to prompt the idea that if I'm going to tell you something, I need to think about how you need to hear it, not how I want to say it. Really great if you've got a workforce of experts or technical people who are constantly explaining things to people less knowledgeable and technical than them. Customers, good example. And explore is a great word. At times we can switch explore out for close, for example, in selling, or problem solve, fix, connect, collaborate. There are other words that we can flexibly use, but the idea is the word explore creates partnering, creates flatness and equality. So that's the entire system, expressed in a single logo for the system. And that's all we ask people to take away. So we get into the variations. That is the generic part of the model, Learn, Teach, Explore model. But what we've also done is then use the format of the model to reformat all of this best practice stuff that's been sitting in these silos, different books by different experts for decades. And these are just some of the Learn, Teach, Explore variations we've come up with. So the way it works is there's always two sides or two slides, depending on whether this is paper-based or electronic. But, for example, with difficult, resistant people, this is one example of a conversation. This is the stuff that we need to be mindful of through all the Learn, Teach, Explore phases, all three. And then we just basically reformat the best practice to fit seamlessly into the model, which allows the learner, the team member, to just go, well, okay, I know Learn, Teach, Explore. I know I can do it. What's the strategy for Learn? What's the strategy for Teach? Phone-based conversations or Teams-based conversations is awesome. They could just have the conversation sitting there in front of them, off screen or off camera, and they can refer to it and drive best practice in seconds. This is one that we designed for a specific organisation who had issues with team members underperforming and not moving forward in their development. And I've never read a conversation in a book this specific, to be honest, but in about 10 or 15 minutes, a bit of brainstorming with the client, we came up with this Learn, Teach, Explore conversation, which they rolled out into the organisation via one-on-one and group team meetings, which they had every Friday morning. And all the managers just looked at this, knew instantly how to do it because they'd been trained in Learn, Teach, Explore, the initial 60 to 90-minute session. Happy days. They could roll this out and then start to use it with their teams. We have had organisations, one of my clients is a peak body in the child safety area. They train hundreds of organisations a year in how to be child safe. And one of the most complex areas is, well, how do I train my workforce to be comfortable having conversations with kids who wish to disclose that an adult is making them feel unsafe? Who wants to have that conversation? Well, again, here is the stuff that we gave participants. And this, by the way, this is me giving the Learn, Teach, Explore conversation to my client who then trains it. And this is what they're showing their workshop participants. And it makes the conversation seem doable. And yeah, they have to introduce Learn, Teach, Explore. I think we get them, they introduce Learn, Teach, Explore quite quickly and then use this conversation model as the role play. So they get change out of an hour and everyone leaves having to have this difficult conversation. This is an older format, but it's the same model. This is a good example of the client really owning the content, but placing it into the Learn, Teach, Explore model. So the how-to supports the what or why-to. It seems to support people being best practice as they move through the three phases. So 60 to 90-minute initial session, after which you can release any specific conversation examples thereafter. In your toolboxes, workshop sessions, policy and procedures. For example, policy and procedures, there are organisations who have LTE versions of safety conversations or investigations of some kind or one-on-one yearly appraisals. So it's a pretty exciting model that we're very proud of and hopefully can assist you in some way. Cheers.